Okay, good morning. So this morning we're going to discuss about the axial skeleton. Okay, since we have already discussed the bone tissue, so we're going to discuss now the different types of skeleton. Actually, we have two types: the axial and the appendicular. So today we're going to discuss the axial. What is axial skeleton? Okay, good morning. So once again, uh, before we start, I would like to give credit to John and Wiley Sons Incorporated for this PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to use for the class discussion. Okay, so there are two divisions of the skeletal system: the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. Now, all over we have 206 bones in our body. 206. So in this illustration, the axial skeleton is highlighted in different colors with the appendicular. So it's a little bit light blue. I don't know if that's really blue, pero how I look at it, it's look like a light blue. Okay, so that is the axial skeleton. All those who are not in that color is the appendicular. So the axial skeleton it is consists of bones that lie around the longitudinal axis. When you say longitudinal, it's along the center, no? What is basically found here in the middle. Okay, so that includes your skulls, which is that includes your bones among ears, hyoid, ribs, sternum. So hyoid is a bone here below the mandible, okay, here. Then your sternum, your vertebral column here at the middle. Then your pelvic bone. Oh no, not the pelvic. Sacrum. No, sacrum is still part of the vertebral column. The appendicular is the bones of the shoulder girdle, then the upper arm, the upper limb, this one, and your legs, and the pelvic girdle, no, mga batang nimo, obos. Those are the appendicular, appendages. So they are appendant, no? They're hanging. So the skeletal system, so the axial division, you can see here the skull, vertebral column, in the thorax or the ribs in the sternum. That's part of your axial. By the appendicular, that includes your pelvic girdle, the upper limb, pelvic girdle, and lower limb. No, no, pectoral rather. No, pectoral girdle, upper limb, pelvic girdle, and lower limb. Okay, so that's for your uh, appendicular skeleton. So, so each of these 206 bones in the body that is named, they can be placed in six broad classification according to shape. It might be a long, flat, irregular, short, or sesamoid bone. So all 206 of those bones belong to this classification. They either belong to flat, long, irregular, short, or sesamoid. Okay. So long bones are greater in length with width and are often slightly curved for the purpose of weight bearing. Okay, so usually your limbs are made up of long bones. Short bones are cube shaped, no? So that's why they are found here in the carpal bones and the uh, tarsal bones. Flat, they are thin, okay, and they have very uh, abundant spongy bone. Okay, so you have cranial bones, kaning sa ulo, ribs, sternum, you have sternum, kaning sa tunga, then the ribs, the scapula, okay, clavicle, yeah, made up of flat. So daghan na sila, spongy na dira. Excuse me, class. Then irregular bones, which is made up of complex shapes like vertebra and some facial bones. Then you have your sesamoid. Sesamoid vary in shape. They might be round or sometimes triangular. Best example of that is again is your patella. Okay, so this is the bones, no? Ang makitaan sa atong ulo. Okay, so your cranial bones. This is the first axial bone that we're going to talk about. So here you will notice that the cranial bones are made up of flat here, ba? Or flat. And it is connected with each other by a this one, no? Suture. We call this as suture joints. Suture means murag giagyan og tahi, no? Or murag tinahi. So if you look at the their connection, it is like being sewed, no? Together. Itahi bitaw og makina. Murag na zigzag line. Okay? So these are known as sutural bones or wormian bones, but basically its right term that is constantly used is the cranial bones. Now, bones have specific surface markings. There are depressions. No? There are two major types of surface marking. There are depressions and openings, and processes. So, depression and openings are naa siya lalong, di naa siya lungag. Those are openings. Okay, which allows, usually openings allow passage way of blood vessels, nerves, and other important structures. Okay, so depression sometimes naa siya dira because to form joints. Processes, these are outgrowth structures. Okay, it might be in joint formation or it might be serves as attachment of ligaments or tendons. So this is a example of processes. So we have here a spinous process. So this is class a spinous process of the vertebra here at the back. May prominent na to diri makita diri the nga portion. That is a spinous process of cervical vertebra uh, C7. Cervical vertebra number 7. Okay. So this is an example of the processes. We have here the spinous process. We have the transverse. Okay, these are another projection produced for the joints. This is facet, no? So, ang kani siya, kita nato ni siya diri kani nga portion. This is a facet. Oh, kani. Dili ni siya kani ha. Not this one, but this one. This is a facet, no? Superior facet. Okay, kani siya, this is a transverse process. Kani siya, no siya, kani. Ano siya transverse process. Okay, so then sa to nga, this is an opening. We call this as foramen. So, given nga a while ago, we talked about that the foramen is a passageway of blood vessel or in other important structures such as nerves. So, diri agi ang spinal cord. Dira, mura na siya dira. Oh. Pero kani nga lungag, nga makita na to, this is not vertebral foramen. This is transverse foramen. No? Ang vertebral foramen na siya dira makita sa diri mo diri ni gaagi ang nerve. Pero diri ang gaagian ni diri is spinal cord. Okay? Clear. So then we have condyles, no? Okay, dagko na sila nga burot sa bukog. So we have the lateral, medial condyle, or epicondyle. So makita na diri, no? Gani siya kay elbow man na. Kani nga structure elbow man na. So ang imong lateral condyle kani diri nga portion, you can easily palpate that here. Nagaburot, no? That is your condyle. This ito nga naapo diri dapit. Okay, that is for your medial condyle. Then naapo na siya depression, di ba? Naatoy depression, no? Nauban ato opening. Sa depression na kay fossa, no? Ang example na is kaning sa likod sa imuhang sikop. No, diri. Di ba? Kung imo na siyang piko, nagaburot, no? This is a process. No? Olecranon. Pero diri sa likod, diri dapit diri. Kung asa na siya gasulod, na siya depression sa ilalang mapalpit gyapon nimo. Iduot nimo na ay murag lungag. That is your olecranon fossa. Okay, that is a depression that is commonly seen in the bone. And here, another marking, you have tubercle. These are projection. Again, serves as attachment of tendon or ligaments. Okay, kani as attachment na siya sa tendon kaya mag-attach na. Okay. Dili siya sa tili na. Attachment na siya sa tendon, sa quadriceps tendon. Diri siya sa tubangan sa imong tuho, ilalom sa imong patela na adre gaburot. No. Inanlom sa imong tuytuway, di marag nay hollow, di nay nagburot, no. That is your tibial tubercle or tuberosity. Okay, so kani siya, this is the pelvis. So the pelvis, mo ni siyang ilium, ischium, and the pubis. So kani siya, mo ni siyang batang, kani mo ning bukog nga ginalingkuran nato, kani mo ni siya dapit sa puso, pubic. Kinana. Okay, so we have other bone markings sa makita. So we have still here an opening, meatus, kanang sidunggan. No? We have another processes, projection, bony, trochanters, na siya dapit sa hips, no? Attachment na siya sa muscles. Okay, so these are example of markings. Makita nato siya in their description. So you have their fissure, foramen, fossa, sulcus, meatus. Here na ang description niya. So please take a pause and read for this one. No. So that's why I'm going to let it stay for a while so that you can read it while you are listening to the lecture. So inana. So these are the example where we can find these markings. Now, so have here fissure. This is the description example where we can find the markings or that kanang fissure asa makita. No? Okay. This one again, mo gyapon na siya. You have the markings, description, and example. Let's take for example head. Usually rounded articular projection supported on a neck of a bone. Example, head of the femur. So, none. Okay, now let's go now directly to axial skeleton. So let's discuss the skull, vertebral column, ribs, and sternum. There are 80 bones in the axial skeleton. Take note of that. No? So kani siya group lang ni. But pa sa skull, napa na siya other parts na skull. Okay, so the bones of the skull. So these are the bones of the skull. So as this is the function. This is the function. No? This is the function. This is the structure that is found on the skull. You have the nasal cavity, kanang ilong, kanang nailungag, sulod, pagyod, mata, paranasal sinuses, kanang paranasal sinuses na siya diri dapit, no? Facial bone na. Okay, small cavities which house organs involved in hearing. There is dunggan. in equilibrium. So kana part na siya sa skull. Ito pa. This one, cranial bones. So you have here, kanidiri, this is cranial bones. Facial bones. So kana siya facial na. Okay. So good diri. Then ani, this is facial bones. So siya is node class, no? So kung ato na siyang tigamnan. So kani siya, this is the frontal, this is the temporal, no, parietal rather, kay Wallman. Temporal, then occipital. Okay? Sana siya. Occipital is dili na siya nga part. Ang imuhang parietal is this. Kining wall dire. Kaya na. And pasipot na sa likod. Then ang temporal is kani when you try to move your mandible. Nga mapalpit nimo din ga move siya. Nga muscle murag ana. That is your temporal area. Temporal bones. So here we have the numbers. We have 8 cranial bones, 14 facial bones. So kaning cranial bones bukog ni siya diri dapit, no? So 8 na siya ka buok. We have isa ka frontal, nakay isa ka occiput, nakay duha ka parietal, duha ka temporal. Then sa sulod dira, sa sulod you have the sphenoid, ini posterior ani dito. No? Na dito ang sphenoid, din sa ubos diri dapit sa ilong level posterior ani, di ba? Mapalpit ni manimo ni no nang imong ilong diri. Back ana niya dito sa sulod, that is your ethmoid, no? Sa facial bones, you have here the mandible, kani. Then kani, this is maxilla, do ka buok. No? Okay, tunga man na siya, the left and right. This is the zygomatic. Kani siya gid mismo, this is the nasal. Then kani diri ginagawasan sa luha dapit diri area, this is your lacrimal. Then internal na, no? Sa sulod na diri palatine, no? Kung nasa ang palatine tonsil naka-attach. Then dito sa sulod sa ilong, you have your nasal conchae and the vomer. Okay, so dito na siya sa sulod. So inana, so this is the frontal, this is the parietal, temporal, okay? Then your ethmoid, tira siya sa pitsa sulod, matagi na kung adiri direkta gid siya sa likod. Okay, so inana siya. So this is the side view, frontal view mo to. So this is the frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital. Okay, the ethmoid is here, no? Okay, so let's go now to the suture. Now this bones is connected by a joint. Okay, na joint na dira, immovable type of joint. We call that joint as your suture. So nasa coronal suture. So gikan coronal means gikan na siya dito nga side paingon dito sa pikas. Then you have your squamous. This is a flat because that is a connection between the temporal and the parietal. So this is squamous and this is the lambdoid, no? Dira na siya dapat ga-connect sa imong temporal to parietal to occipital cranial bones. Okay, this is the auditory meatus. Okay, pero diri sa to nga class, gikan aning parietal diri na siya nag straight line taman dira. We call that as your sagittal suture. So diri ana. Pero kani siya, this is the skull of an infant or an infant, no? Napaman siya inani, gitawag siya fontanelle. So actually wala pa na siya nag-mature, wala pa nag-unite ang suture. So munang yubon-yubonan sa bata humok kapon, no? But eventually ma-close po na siya. as the cranial bones grow. So later on mas close ang imong fontanelles. Now design na siya nganong na dili ni siya nag-unite pa kay imagine nimo kung ang ulo sa bata is nag-unite na ang suture while naa siya sa womb. Do you think na ang bata makagawa siya sa iyahang sa pelvic outlet sa mama if the head is already fixed, no? Naka-join na ang mga suture. Siguro ang mama maggisi ang lawas na paggawas niya. Ay gisi naman ang adaan. Pero masamot, no? Magisian. Hindi. Kaingon siya nga di na gid siya mga anak siguro otro. But because of the fontanelles class, the head of the baby becomes flexible. When it goes out on the vagina, so ang iyang ulo maipit tuod pero mag-ana man na. No problem with the brain because the brain is soft, so pliable man na siya, so dili problema. Ano makalusot ang bata. So kay flexible man kay ang mga joints wala pa na connect. So that's why there are some babies nga when they come out, ang ilang ulo is pihing, mipis, no. Mana nga importante kayo when you are, it is very important na ang baby paggawas niya kung matulog siya, imo siyang bali-balihon to balance, no, sa head niya para mabalik siya sa normal. No? So inana nga shape. Pero uban na inalimtan na sige nalaghayang mo lang pagdako pahapyahok ang diri dapit, no, flat gamay kay wala mabalanse paligid-ligid. Okay, so this is the bone of the skull. This is the paranasal sinuses. It is found in this area, no. Kana magka-sinusitis ka, inflammation of the sinus, pati diri bugat and here nakasakit. Okay, so ano na siya iyang appearance. Excuse me. So this is the area where you can find the paranasal sinuses. So you have frontal, ethmoid, and you have your sphenoidal, maxillary, no, kana siya. So purpose of the sinuses is to help resonate the sound when you talk. They are lined with mucus, so therefore when you breathe air, it humidifies the air. It helps the nasal conchae to humidify the air para mainit-init siya, dali siya ma-absorb dito pag-abot sa atong lungs. Okay. And also because naay air, as we all know, warm pagid ang air dira, no? So anything with air, it becomes light. Or sometimes it even floats, diba? Example na hot air balloon. So muna usahay nga kung hanginon ganing tawo, normal na kay nga naman man say sinuses, puno siguro sa hangin ang iyang sinus. So okay, so bones of the skull form the 8 cranial bones fit together to form brain case. So kanang cranial bones nimo naka-fit na siya together. It's like na siya keystone sa tunga, no, Roman arch, na ba? So ligon na nimo diri diri matanggal, no, diba? Pero once kuhaan nimo siya isa, matanggal to siya pero let's predict for example kani, no, you're going to pull out that dili dayon siya mo-collapse kay mabangga man to, no. So inana siya, so design yun na siya nga naman, so kung na pressure diri i-distribute niya pa ana, dili siya mapisat ang sulod niya kay ang iyang structure gapaana man, so naibutang nimo diri o ana. So matingala bitaw tanay, there are some individuals who carries big loads of sack of rice, no? Sometimes na 4 kasapaw, wa man mapusa ang ulo because the head is designed to evenly distribute the weight, no, throughout. So wala dira ang bearing sa weight dito. Asa man ang bearing sa weight naa diri sa side paingon sa vertebra, no. So the load is on that vertebra another weight-bearing joint. No? So inana siya ang keystone. This is the inner part of the skull. So this is the uh, ethmoid bone, sphenoid bone rather. Ay ang sulod appearance niya. So retorimiatus ni siya. Oh. So gikan na siya sa gawas, that's an opening pasulod. So ang imo ang sagittal suture gikan diri tama dira. Kani siya coronal man ni sumpay man ni siya sa coronal suture dito gikan sa pika sa side nga gi-remove. The lumboid. So what bones is not seen here? Temporal? No, naman siya kani temporal, no, on the other side. Okay? But of course, the temporal and the parietal on the left or right side, wala na. Nabilin ipika sa ila. So, so 14 facial bones. So, we have here the nasal, zygomatic, kani, maxilla, and mandible. Okay, asa man ang palatine o ang lacrimal. O, sulod ta. So, this is now your lacrimal. Klase ka maghilak. Ang vomer na diri sa sulod sa ilang posterior gud ana. Kinda ethmoid to sa back. So, you have here the maxilla and mandible. Okay, so, inana siya, no? Yung appearance. So, then you go to vertebra. Vertebra, kanang sa buko-buko nimo. Gikan diri sa base skull, paubos taman diri sa sacrum, sa pigtot, no? Or tailbone nga ginatawag. So, sa may parts sa vertebral column, mo ni siya, no? Basic yung nga parts, you have the spinous process, transverse, facet, this is the pedicle, no, kanya, pedicle or the pillars, then lamina, vertebral body. Okay, so ana siya. So, nakay mga processes ani, attachment sa muscle, kani ligaments, kani connected ni siya to another facet, no? Forming a joint. Kani siya, manala siya fibrocartilage diri, then attached na po na siya sa vertebra nga na superior niya. Okay? So, ang imong vertebral column, sugod sa base sa imong skull, tama dito sa pigtot or tailbone. So, divided na siya into regions. O na kay cervical region, thoracic, lumbar, and sacrum and coccyx. So, ina ni siya. So, gikan diri na kay 7 ka cervical vertebra, then na kay 12 ka thoracic, which correspond also to your 12 ribs, and 5 lumbar vertebra. You have sacrum, which is 1, and coccyx 1. So, actually, 5 na siya. Then, diffuse. Kani siya, I think 5 nagya, 4 man siguro ni. Yan, diffuse po na isa. So, all in all, imo na siyang totalon, you have only 31. 5 or 7 plus 12, that is 19. 7 plus 12, 19. Plus 5 lumbar, 19 plus 5, that is 19 plus 5, 24. So, plus 5 ka sacrum and 1 coccyx. So, 31. Okay, so inana. So, these are the label, no? Ang imong cervical, ginaribira na siya C1 to C7, T1 to T12 for the thoracic, L1 to L5 for the lumbar, no? Sa sacrum, wala, automatic na siya, ginatawag na siya nga sacrum. Coccyx mo gyapon. Okay, so vertebral column. So this is the vertebral column. Kita nimo mo na siya spinous process. So this is the fibrocartilage, the intervertebral disc, no, made up of fibrocartilage. This is the body of the vertebral column. Okay, kani diri sa kilid mo ning transverse process diri gagawas ang atong peripheral nerve. So much for that because we're going to discuss that specifically when we reach the kuan trunk. Discuss na to thoroughly. Okay, so inani no. So mo na siya gainan no. This is the vertebral body of the intervertebral intervertebral foramen. Then you have your fibrocartilage. Okay, so the load goes here. So kani siya maipit. So mo-notice ninyo ang size niya na decrease gikan diri o ganto diri because of the load applied to it. No? So una gikan ning katulog pag mata ni medyo taas kagamay kaya na wala pa na siya na compress, but after several hours mo nahinan siya ka compress mo wala ang water contact niya. So yan eh. This is the vertebral column. So, pagpanganak niya at the start isa ra gyud na ang curve sa spine, more on kyphosis kay dungo ba. But when we start to learn to control our head, it's the time nga na siya another curve na form, which is the lordosis. So, then we will start to sit. No? Magsugod na ganit taglingkod. Magsugod na nagka-form dayon ang imuhang lumbar lordosis. Then later on, nanapog kyphosis diri sa sacrum area. So, mo ni siya. No? So, you have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then, you have 12. 1, 2, 12. Then, 5. Then, 1. Sacrum na to is 5 fused sacral vertebra. Then, 1 coccyx. So, ina na siyang number class. Okay. So, sometimes there are abnormalities nga mahitabo sa atong vertebral column. It could be division sa spine laterally, mo pakilid siya, mo bawog. We call that as scoliosis kani. Luoy kayo yung babae ani kay murag nagibuhi nga hala sa likod. Then we have here too much bako. We call that as kyphosis. Then here sobra katiad, we call that as lordosis. So kani common siya sa mga laki para inong hawod. Kani siya common siya sa mga bayi para inong sexy. Kani siya ingon nila scoliosis is a disease of beautiful women, but I don't know. Okay, so this one is the vertebral column patch niya ana siya dira. Kita na to diri. Ano? Okay, so gi-divide na siyang vertebral column, ang imong cervical region rather pangalanan siya na siya different dito nga klase sa vertebra. No? Ang iyang structure lahi siya kay sa other cervical vertebra. Lahi sila nga duha. So we have the C1 which is called the atlas because it carries the cranium directly. Then you have your axis where your atlas provides a rotate, no? Maglingi, magyango, mag-move na siya sa imuhang axis ang imuhang atlas. Okay na. So this is the cervical vertebra. So kani siyang murag ring, this is the atlas. Then kani siyang murag na ulo-ulo, this is the axis. Okay, dira siya magtuyok ang imuhang atlas sa kaning odontoid process na projection nga gikan sa C2. So muna ang appearance nila sa imong cervical vertebra na there are 7 of them. Okay, so inana. Then you have your thoracic. So ang thoracic starting from the T1 na si prominent kaayong spinous process nga mapalpit yan nato dire murag kanang silik nga mapalpit nato sa back. Okay, that is T1. Then, siya, this is the vertebral body. This is the transverse. Yeah, ng transverse dira na siya articulation site for the ribs, no. So it correspond, no, ang number of ribs correspond with the number of ribs. So na kay 12 ka ribs, na po kay 12 ka thoracic vertebra. So inana, no, so this is the intervertebral disc, which is made up of fibrocartilage. So this is a foramen, transverse foramen, or intervertebral foramen. Pwede. Kaya ang transverse foramen, dito din na siya nag-refer sa cervical region. Tungod na siya ay lungag sa transverse process. Agihanan sa vertebral artery, no, that supplies the brain. So this is the sacrum. So tananin mo, 1, 2, 3. Na siya naglungag kana 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, kana siya equivalent na siya sa number of bones or sacrum, no. So ana 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then kani coccyx na 4, pero nahimo na lang nang siyang usa. So that's why ang counting ana is 31 na lang. Kana fuse pa na. Kani is 1, kani is 1 also. Oh, this one is 5, diri isa. 31 na siya. Ang ihap sa number of vertebral column. Okay, so then thoracic cage, how mo na siya, your ribs. Now, when you say thoracic cage, that refers to your ribs. It encloses the lungs and the heart. Okay, it provides protection to them. So, na 12 ka, 12 ka kwan, no? 12 ka ribs that correspond to the number of vertebra. So, ang classification lang ng ribs, naka-attach na siya diri, no, ang imuhang ribs, no, sa first 8 nga ribs. Okay, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, ang first 8 ribs, naka-attach na siya directly diri sa sternum. It could be in the manubrium or it could be on the body of the sternum. Okay, so manubrium, this is the handle. Okay, kani siya consider siya as dagger, no. So manu, that's why it's called handle, no. Okay, this is the blade of the dagger, or we call this as the body of the sternum. Okay, so you have the sternal angle, xiphoid process, and then you have the body. So diri naka-attach na siyang ribs. Okay, diri tama diri, no? So those ribs that attach to the sternum is considered as true ribs. There are 8 true ribs. Okay, now kani siya. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this 8 is your true ribs. 9 and 10, that is your false ribs. Then you have your floating here, the 11 and 12. So inana ra siya, no? Sayang ra kaayo. Tigamnan. So let's remember that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that is true ribs, while 9 and 10, that is false. 11 and 12, floating ribs. Nga no floating man? Why they are called floating? Because they don't have any connection with the costal cartilages. Pero na siya nag-articulate sa thoracic vertebra, then wala na siya connection on the anterior part. Oh no, correct me. 7 true ribs di ay. Sorry class. So, ang 8 di ay considered as false na siya. So, there are 3 false ribs, 8, 9, and 10. Okay? 7 true ribs. Thank you sa nabasa gid na ako. Okay? So, inana. So, ano yung false ribs diri? 8, 9, and 10. Ang floating is 11 and 12. So, actually, in some Kani kanang clinic nga caters those individual who wants to be sexy. So sa mga surgeon, plastic surgeon, dermatologist, mga ana, spa clinic, so, para na kang doktora Bikibilo, no, sa iyang bilo. So sometimes the floating ribs were is removed by the surgeon, no. So katong mga individual that wants to look sexy by having a figure of 8, no, murag 8, is laganahan atong drum, no, ana ang shape nila. So gusto sila 8. So kay gusto sila 8. So ilang mo ina-remove nila ang ilang floating ribs nga duha ka both sides. So ana siya. So I don't know kung unsa ilang mag-gain ana. Sexy raman siguro. So mo ni siya part sa ribs, no? So, na siya head. Kani siya nga part, this part articulates with the vertebra. So ang isa na siya ga articulate dito sa body. Then kani nga part nag-articulate na siya sa transverse process sa ribs dito sa back, no? Nana. Then kaning sa tubang ga-articulate siya sa costal cartilage or dito sa sternum. So, nana lang. Okay? So, again, if you have any questions, clarifications regarding this lecture, don't be shy. You can post your questions or clarification dira sa Moodle na i-messages ra. You can message me anytime so that I can answer it, or we can discuss further to elaborate things that you don't understand, and then or you can ask me directly. You can PM me in Facebook, no? So don't be shy because all of us pass that area or that aspect sa student life. Sometimes there are terms and which is foreign to us, no? So don't be shy to ask questions because asking questions signifies that you are listening and you are learning and you want to learn more. Okay? Because if you don't ask question, then how can you know things, how they work, how they operate if you will not ask? So ask questions because learning usually, no, not all the time, usually comes from asking. Okay? No more? Okay, thank you for listening. Again, see you for the next virtual classroom meeting, and we will discuss further this lesson. Thank you and good morning.